The laughter echoed through the penthouse as three well-dressed women clinked their glasses of champagne. "It's going to be hilarious," one of them said, scrolling through her phone. "She actually agreed to go. Can you believe it?" They were the kind of women who lived off gossip, privilege, and expensive perfume. The kind who found amusement in the misfortunes of others. Tonight, their entertainment wasn't a movie or a party. It was a blind date. A cruel setup. Imagine her walking in, thinking she's meeting a real billionaire. Another giggled. When she sees him, she'll probably faint. The him they were referring to was none other than Adrian Knight, the city's most mysterious billionaire. Tall, reserved, and intimidating, Adrian rarely made public appearances. His name was whispered in business circles, often with respect or envy. What the girls didn't know was that Adrian had nothing to do with their little prank. They'd managed to get his name attached to a fake dating profile through one of their inside connections. Inviting a poor waitress named Mia to a private dinner at the luxury restaurant Le Vivre. They wanted to watch her embarrassment from a distance, see her show up in her modest dress, believing she was about to meet a man far beyond her league. Mia hadn't been on a date in years. Life hadn't given her the luxury of romance. She worked double shifts at a small cafe, saving every coin to support her ailing mother. When she received the invitation for a special dinner, she thought it was a mistake at first. But the message was polite. The name Adrian Knight seemed strangely familiar. Wasn't he the man she'd once served coffee to, months ago, who had tipped her more than she made in a week? Heart pounding, she accepted. Now, standing outside Le Vivre, she smoothed her simple dress, the one she'd borrowed from a friend. The glass doors reflected her anxious face as she whispered to herself, "Just be yourself, Mia." Inside, Adrian Knight sat alone at his reserved table. He had no idea a prank was in motion. He was expecting a business associate, but a last-minute change had cleared his evening. When the maitre d' approached with a polite nod, saying, "Sir, your guest has arrived," Adrian looked up and froze. The woman who entered wasn't like anyone who usually shared his table. She wasn't covered in diamonds or wearing designer heels. There was something pure about her. Nervous eyes, soft smile, and a presence that felt genuine. "Mr. Knight?" she asked softly, stopping by his table. "Yes," he said, slightly puzzled. "Please, have a seat." She sat carefully, clutching her small purse. "Thank you for inviting me. I was surprised," he smiled politely. "So was I." At the corner of the restaurant, three women hid behind their menus, watching, barely holding back laughter. "She actually showed up," one whispered. "This is priceless." As the waiter poured wine, Adrian studied the woman in front of him. "Forgive me, but have we met before?" She nodded shyly. "A few months ago. You came to the cafe where I work. You helped me when those men were being rude. You even left a generous tip." Adrian's expression softened. He remembered now, the kindness in her voice, the humility in her eyes. "Ah, yes," he said quietly. "Mia." Her name sounded different coming from him. Gentle, respected, almost reverent. They talked. At first, awkwardly, but as minutes turned to hours, the air between them changed. She spoke about her dreams, her struggles, her mother's illness, her hope to study someday. Adrian listened, really listened, something few people ever allowed him to do. Meanwhile, the women watching grew restless. Why isn't he sending her away? He's supposed to humiliate her, not talk. But Adrian wasn't playing their game, because he didn't even know one existed. Halfway through dinner, Mia excused herself to the restroom. That's when the maitre d' approached Adrian. "Sir," he said discreetly, "3 guests at table 15 seem to be observing your date rather intently. One of them mentioned something about a setup." Adrian's eyes narrowed. His jaw tightened. "A setup?" "Yes, sir. They appeared to have lured your companion here under false pretenses." A slow anger burned in his chest, not for himself, but for the woman who had walked in with hope in her heart. He rose from his seat, composed but cold. "Bring them the bill for the most expensive bottle of wine," he said, "and tell them Mr. Knight would like to speak with them." When Mia returned, she found Adrian smiling again, but there was something different in his eyes, a storm he was trying to contain. "Mia," he said softly, "do you trust me?" She blinked, confused. I think so. Good, he said. Then come with me. He stood, took her hand, and led her across the restaurant. The trio of women froze, faces pale as the billionaire approached their table. Ladies, Adrian said, his voice smooth but cutting. I understand this evening's arrangement was your idea. They exchanged nervous glances. It was just a joke, one muttered. We didn't mean any harm. A joke, Adrian repeated. His tone dropped to ice. You invited this woman, an honest, hard-working person, to humiliate her for your amusement. Mr. Knight, he raised a hand, silencing them. Do you know what separates people like you from people like her? The restaurant had gone silent. Every pair of eyes turned toward them. Adrian looked at Mia, then back at the women. She has dignity, he said. Something money can't buy and privilege can't fake. You, on the other hand, have only arrogance, and that is a currency that runs out fast. The women sat speechless. One of them whispered, We didn't know you'd actually show up. Adrian's gaze hardened. You thought I was just a name and a tool for your cruelty. But let me make something very clear. If this is your idea of entertainment, you have my pity. He turned to Mia, his expression softening instantly. Come on, we're leaving. He placed his hand gently on her back and guided her out of the restaurant. The murmurs followed them all the way to the door. Outside, under the glittering city lights, Mia's eyes shimmered with confusion and emotion. You didn't have to do that, she whispered. Yes, he said, looking at her intently. I did, because what they tried to do says nothing about you, but everything about them. She hesitated, then smiled faintly. Thank you, Mr. Knight, Adrian, he corrected softly. Call me Adrian. They walked along the street, the night air cool and calm. You know, he said after a pause, I was supposed to have dinner with an investor tonight, but I think I met someone far more valuable instead. She looked at him, startled. You don't mean that? Oh, I do, he said with a smile. You reminded me of something I forgot a long time ago. That kindness is rarer than wealth. She laughed softly, shaking her head. You barely know me. Then let me fix that, he said. Dinner again tomorrow? This time without an audience. Her eyes widened in disbelief. You really want to? I insist. As they stood beneath the glowing streetlight, the world around them blurred into background noise. For the first time in a long while, Adrian Knight wasn't the billionaire on magazine covers. He was just a man looking at a woman who had unknowingly shown him something real. The cruel prank that began as a joke ended up becoming a moment of truth, not just for Mia, but for everyone who watched that night. And somewhere in the corner of the restaurant, the three women sat in silence, realizing the billionaire's words had done more than embarrass them. They had exposed them. Because in the end, it wasn't the poor girl who looked foolish. It was those who had forgotten that class has nothing to do with money,